right, welcome everyone to this week in Svelte, episode 122. Here we meet today. There is Mikhail. I think I pronounced
Hello.
it correctly. He's gonna show like a very cool project of yours, of him, Svedit. Later, he's gonna showcase it. In the meantime, he's also joining me for the changelog, so we can start right away. Let's see. So we do have preserve select state while focused. So I think we looked at the devlog for this before, and now it is actually merged. But basically, for inputs, if you are doing some async work in Svelte 5, so let's say that I don't know, you have and this is going to come in handy before in the future. So let's say that there is some async work, like let slow name, right? And this is a derived of slow that depends on name. And we can do await slow. Now, function slow, it's an async function that takes a name, does the good old await new promise resolve set timeout resolve, I don't know, 1,000 millisecond, and it will resolve with the name itself. So if we now show slow name, you can see that is it, oh, I need to return it. I need to return new promise. Okay. So you can see that basically, if I update this, that will update after a second, obviously. So obviously that's probably expected. However, you notice that let's say that so the point is, if I do this, let me show you. Like if I do name here, and if I do this, you see that name, even if it's not slow name, it's still updating after a while. And the reason for this is because let's say that I do something like this. I don't want to tear. Basically, the point is this slow name is derived from name and it returns the same value. And so like they should always be in sync. So if I do this, if we don't if we don't do stuff like this, um, what could happen is that there will be like a broken moment where this is not updated yet and this already has updated. So that's not the good behavior. However, the problem is if we don't update it immediately for the input, you will feel a very sluggish experience because you will start typing and like it will update after a second. And so to avoid that, there was a special case for input that said, okay, if you are updating an input, update the input immediately, and then you can update the rest of the variables separately. And that was fine. However, for select, there was not such thing. So select, let's say that I do something like this, and I do bind value like this, and then I have option value is equal to actually I can do this b and c, and I need to bind to name, right? So before there was no such thing for select. So if I switch to this version, which is like 40, like version 40, like this. So before this thing, you can see that when I change A to B, um, uh, hmm, I wonder if Yeah, maybe it is changing, but not. Yeah, okay, so it's not visible in the DOM because the DOM is still updated, but then the actual, so if we do this, we can probably show it like this. Uh, New val uh, name is equal new val. I guess. I don't know. Okay, let's try. I don't know if I will be able to show you. So let's do console.log getting name. Maybe it is anyway. So let's say that I do B. Yeah, you see, like getting name. So this function, it's invoked after 1 second when the value is actually updated. And so this was a problem because, like, obviously for the browser, it's updating immediately. But what happens if instead I do stuff like this? Maybe, so let me do this, Control C. If I do this, you can see that this is updated after. This will not change anyway. Okay, it's fine. I think this will still show you. Like, if I switch to the latest version, now technically this should be changing immediately, and it is not. Okay, I don't know how to show you how to show it to you, but basically, like, it's the same behavior of the input where when I write, the value is updated immediately and not after the period of time. So that's it. Sorry, I was not able to show it. Run boundary async effect in the context of the current batch. So if there is any async effect inside or actually the async effect, which is a particular type of effect that is running within a boundary, now is executed in the context of the current batch. So what this means is that when this is async effect execute will be executed not in the context of the on the global context, but on the context of the current batch. It's very complicated, so it's difficult to explain. But error if each block has a key but not as close. So this is something that is pretty. It was pretty silly, and it was sprouted by the fact that, like, technically, you can write each length 10 each, and I can write, I don't know, a div that says hey, and this will print hey 10 times, right? And obviously, like, this basically just means like loop 10 times and like print this thing 10 times. But obviously, you can also do as I, and you can print the I here. What? What? Yeah, because it's an empty array. Yeah, okay. It's fine. Like, so let's say that I do 1, 2, 3, like this as I guess I now see 1, 2, and 3. I can also do this, comma I, and this will be the index. And as you may know, like, the full syntax is as item, comma I, and then you can pass a key, which in this case might be I, for example. Now, before, basically, you couldn't use the key if you didn't have an item. So, like, if you had something like this, it was erroring out for an item. And maybe we should error out anyway, but regardless, like, basically, without this part, you couldn't use a key. And computer guy actually opened a PR to allow this, and then we realized, like, what even is the sense for this? because like if you don't have any item, if you don't have any index, what are you putting here? Like, are you putting 2? But that is a key, but like doesn't make sense to have stuff like this. And so now it's actually erroring out. It should error out in a better way, I think. Maybe we should put like name here to get the better. Yeah, doesn't seem like. Oh, is it not a function? Oh, yeah, because. I think. Okay, so sorry, guys. Like I'm messing around a lot with you today, but like, do you see this error? Like, it's 123 is not a function, and the reason why is like this is because you have this thing here. But this should actually throw the error that like each block has key but not as close. So I wonder if maybe there is a bug. Each length 10. Yeah, okay, so this is the error that it's actually throwing. Each block without an S close cannot have a key. But I think, like, what if I have 1, 2, 3? It's still erroring out. So like technically this should also error out. This is doing a different error because I think it's messing with the fact that like it feels like this is a function, and I don't think we can do anything about it. But yeah, okay, regardless. So this was the fix. Also, there is another new rune which is state.eager, and this is actually related to what I was showing before, like the select part. And the concept of state.eager is that it's a way for you to prevent, like, to actually tear the state. So let me actually show you. So we're back in a situation where basically we have this name, word, blah, 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 and stuff like that, right? Now, imagine that this, instead of being slow name, is a slow count. And we depend on count. And now let me do this. So we can say that slow count should be equal to count, right? Let me actually remove the input so that we have a better view of everything. Now, if I don't use state.eager, like, tell me if you spot the problem. We are doing this and we are increasing count, and this triggers this await. This means, however, that when I click, I get literally zero feedback on the click. Like, I click and after 1 second, I get the feedback on the click. And this is not ideal. And so the solution to this is state.eager. So if we can do state.eager, and what state.eager does is that it says, okay, always use the actual value of this. Don't wait for any async work happening. And so now I can do this, and the update is immediate. But notice that when I do this, like here, this is still waiting for count to update. So this is basically unlocking the better of both work. Like, if you want, you can decide which part of your application is actually eager, like it's immediate, and which part of your application is actually catching up to the sync work that is happening. So that's pretty cool. Okay, we have place let declaration before const declaration. So this was a scoping problem. So when you have both a let and a const declaration, obviously all of that is converted into like, let's say that I have a component here and I cannot use let right now, so I need to do everything from scratch. Like, I need to be in a legacy component. So let's say that I have this and I do component let x Yeah, like this. And at const xx is equal x, right? So let's say that I have a situation like this. Obviously, this is compiled to JavaScript code, right? So when you do stuff like this, we need to create the x variable. And when you do stuff like this, we need to create the xx variable. So if you take a look at the JS output of this, you can see that now those are in order. But if we switch to 41.1, I think, uh, maybe 40, I don't know, let's say 40. Yeah, those are still in order. I don't know. I probably need to check out. So this was the problem. I don't know, like the reproduction, how it looks like. Um, Using is in resulting in error at runtime. Cannot access index. Oh yeah, okay. So that's probably only for slots. Okay. So basically, like if I do the same thing, but I do div slot is equal something, let x like this, and I do this. This was probably a problem. I guess. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, yeah. Okay. As you can see, like this is using x, but x is declared here, and so this will should throw an error at runtime. Obviously, we don't have anything inside the component, so it would be a runtime error. But if we switch to the latest version, you can see that now I need to change something here. Why it's like, let me reload. I don't know why. I don't know. Like, there's something wrong with me today. Uh, this should fix the issue. I don't know. It's fine. That was the problem, and now it's fixed. Improve each key without as error. So there was some problem with each key without as, and now it is not. This is very important. Centralized branch management. Like this was basically like this fixed a bunch of bugs, and it was something that obviously Rich did. But basically, like there was some problem with like the branching, like the branch, so like the if blocks, the each block and stuff like that in async were a bit problematic because of like how batching works and stuff like that. And so now with this change, it's actually fixed. Um, let's see, keep batches alive until all async work is complete. So this is also another changes to the batches. Most of the bugs for async actually are like in the batching part of Svelte, and so like you will see a lot of PRs about batching. Don't preserve reactivity context across function boundaries. So this was a problem. Like it was basically if you were this may feel like a regression, like, hey, I want reactivity to preserve between the context. But if you take a look at the actual output, basically to determine if we are inside the derived const, so awaiting inside an async function assigned to const broken scenes like this. So as you can see, like this is the playground part. As you can see, if you are inside, like if you're assigning to const and you are doing await here, like we were basically like saying, okay, if this is like you're using await inside here, so it means that you are using await inside this whole thing, and that was not true, and so now it is fixed. This is something that's sprouted from Pete. penguin that was like objectively and like rightfully mad about this, because basically before these changes, if you were using inspect, the log would come from, so if I do svelte.dev slash playground, that's probably not gonna work because of how the playground is bundled. Let's try. If I do $inspect count, for example, and I switch back to 40, for example, if I open the console, accept a bunch of garbage, you will see that, yeah, that will not work in the console. But basically, like if I try to visit this, maybe if I refresh, yeah, it will not work. Okay. It's very annoying. Like the playground, it's annoying me today. Let's see. Can I quickly spin up something to show you? I guess I can. Let me do it very quickly. So this stuff as we create, inspect stuff, minimal, using TypeScript. I don't want any of that. PMPM. I'm coming, guys. Sorry. So cd inspect stuff, pnpm dev. Actually, all right. So if I open this, okay, let's root page counter. I think I do have it. Okay, $inspect count. Okay, so let me zoom in a bit. Now, if I install an old version of Svelte, so if I do pnpm I Svelte at, I don't know, 5.14, and I do pnpm dev, let me open this. And now you can see that if I open the console, and if I open this, refresh, I suppose what I think this is, I know what this is. Application, service worker, unregister. Let me refresh. Okay. Why it's still showing chunk? That's weird. But basically, like you can see that like these logs doesn't come from where I log. It comes from this chunk file, which is pretty annoying because I mean I want to see where I'm logging. And now if I do pnpm I Svelte at latest, and I do pnpm dev, you can see that now in the console, I actually get the right log. So if I click here, this will actually bring me to where I'm logging. And I have source map disabled, source map, enable JavaScript source map. Okay, and if I do pause page.svelte, you can see that I'm actually now literally inside my component to like the right point where I'm logging. So it was a small like QOL, like quality of life improvement, but it is something. Like let me disable source map. I like to do like to see the real code. Okay, so let me close this and let me open this. Okay. So yeah, that was it. Ensure guards if each key run before their contents. So this was another like problem with branches, basically. Basically, like if each and key, like that part of the template needs to run before their content, because otherwise, if you are guarding something, like let's say that if you're doing if object and then you're rendering object dot something, if the content runs before the if, it's problematic because it will throw an actual error. So exclude vit optimized depths from stack traces. So that's good. Skip repeatedly traversing the same derived. I think this is yeah, exactly. This is a matter of performance. I think there was a reporting about a pretty bad performance. Performance regression, and now it is fixed. So that's good. I will not join my book club. All right, so let's move back, and I think that's it for Svelte. Let's see if we have some new release of Svelte Kit, and we do. So fix string promises not resolving when another load function returns a fast resolving promise. That's interesting. So if you are streaming a promise and there is another load function that was returning a faster promises, that was never resolved, and now it is. Allowed to run pre-flight validation only. So with remote functions, you can run the pre-flight. So if I go to the documentation, sorry for the pom. So let's search for form, remote function form. You can see that inside this, you can run pre-flight, programmatic validation. Yeah, I think that, no, that's not it. Validation, here it is. So basically what you can do is that you can pass a schema. You can do create post.preflight schema and passing a schema. And this basically will validate the form client side before actually sending the request to the server. And now you can also only run this pre-flight schema. So is there some documentation about this? Maybe not. Yeah, I think there's no documentation about this. Let me see in the PR if there's some documentation about it. So basically, like now, like what the problem was that when you're running validation, it was still also calling the server to validate. And now it allows you to actually run only validation, like for example, on each keystroke. Let me see if there is some documentation updated here. Okay. Okay, you can pass some options to validate. So you can do validate, and then you can say include untouched and pre-flight only. And if you do this, you like it will only do the client side validation. So you can programmatically validate your schema with your schema and on each keystroke, and add an issue to each to the list of issues, or you can do the server-side validation. Update overload to set invalid type to schema input. All right, so yeah, so like it now is it was a type issue basically. And we now also have a fix avoid hanging when error is used while streaming promises from a server load function. Okay. 3 shake load function code if we know it's unused. That's interesting. So we are removing a bunch of load function code. Fix recursive form field type for recursive or unknown schema. So when you are doing validation, that's actually something that happened to me. So I have an issues component, And this issues component is basically what it's doing is that it's accepting a form of any kind, and when you have this form, it will loop over each issues, like all issues, and log every issue. Like, it's a pretty dumb component. This is a website for my wife, so I wasn't pay too much attention to like this is something that is just like for her dashboard, and I want just print each message. The problem is that before the latest version of SvelteKit, if I remove this casting here, this is problematic because basically this fields, since it's unknown, to prevent infinite recursion in TypeScript, it will basically stop. And there was a wrong typing. And so like this at runtime, it's actually there, but from the type perspective, is not there. And so if I do pm at svelte.js/kit at latest, this should be fixed. And I think I need to restart the dev server. So this should be fixed. And it is. So I can save, and I can probably also post about it. I will commit. I will actually commit live. Fix, remove, type, hack. All right. I think I can remove this discard file. Yeah, commit. All right. Thank you guys for bothering with me. Rework internal representation of form value to be state. So this is something that is nice, because basically before, the internal representation of forms were state.row, which means that if you, for example, wanted to push some new value to state, like to a form values, it will not work. And now it will work. So if you want to do some optimistic update, you can actually do it. All right, we do have this. Let's see, we have 2 new releases of Svelte MCP. So this is pretty interesting. If you are using the MCP server, now the playground link actually uses MCP UI. And this is pretty interesting because I don't know if you are up to date with the MCP stuff, but let me actually show you. Can I show you? I think I can. So let me do this. Last nanobot. Let me do. I need to find my command. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So I think I can do this. All right. So now I am running with the latest. So this is just nanobot, which is like one of the hosts that actually supports the MCP UI stuff. So this is just a chat. I'm using my Anthropic, my cloud API, and this should be using the should be using the Svelte MCP server. So I can do Svelte task like this, and I can say, yeah, let's not actually do the prompt. I can say, can you create a very simple Svelte 5 counter component? Now, when I do this, this will create the component. As you can see, like it's calling the autofixer, and this is the counter component. And now he's gonna ask me like, would you like to create a playground link? Now, before this update, you would basically like receive a very long link that then you can click to open the playground. But now, if you are inside a host that actually support MCP UI, like Nanobot, and it should also be supported by VS Code sooner or later, but it's something that like it's probably like is going to be supported sooner or later. Now I can say yes, please, and watch the magic. Like it's going to generate the playground link, and once it does, you will have like the code directly in your chat, and you can actually interact with the component, you can change the code, you can see it, and obviously you can also click the link if you want. So that's honestly pretty sweet, and I'm pretty hyped about this change. And we also have this other thing here, which is suggest against JS variable in CSS. This is something that I noticed LLM were doing a lot. So basically, they were wait, open this. So like they were trying to use JavaScript variables inside CSS, which obviously compiles to a known usable component, and so we added a suggestion for that. We also added support for state.eager because like we have a list of runes that we use for various stuff. And we added a preferred frame size for the UI resource. So as you can see, right now the UI was basically pretty like it was 100% by like 1,000 pixel. Before this fix, it was like this teeny tiny, so like we fixed it. And we also added the icons to server.json. So Svelte is like the Svelte MCP is also in the official registry, and you can also add icons to it. So now you can see the icons there. All right, that's it for the MCP. Let's see, ESLint plugin Svelte. We have docs update Svelte ESLint parser to 1.4.0. It supports state.eager. Fix no navigation without resolve, detecting asset function as well. No unus prop validates spread operator properly. That's good. No navigation without resolve, improve error messages. Let's see if we have something else. We have SV, which has a new release. So for Drizzle, like CWD, which is the current working directory, option in add command is now taken into account. Docker compose file is now stored in compose.yaml instead of docker compose.yaml. I guess this is a breaking change in how Docker works. Include monorepo root in dependency detection. So if you are running SV add inside a monorepo, it will also look at the root of the monorepo to figure out if that's something that... and you can also add now the MCP to configure in your project. So you can do SV add MCP, and it will basically ask you a series of questions that will help you configure the MCP. There's also from Playground will now bring a Playground layout to get more consistent experience with the online Playground. That's nice. Probably stuff about CSS and stuff like that. Right. We have a new Svelte ESLint parser, which is adding support for state.eager. And I think that's it. So now it's time for the more interesting bit, which is what Mikael will talk about. So if you want to share your screen, I'm going to...
Yes. Can you hear me well? Just
yes.
Reactivated the mic. Cool. Let me show the entire screen again.
Here it is.
Ooh, here it is.
All right. The stage is yours.
And the stage is mine. Thank you.
I'll leave, and you can. I'm gonna join you after your presentations. So, if you have any question about all you are seeing, drop them in chat. We're gonna do the Q&A after.
Cool. Thank you very much for the invitation. Yeah, I mean, I am wondering if anyone has seen the project yet, because I was giving a talk in a Svelte summit once, like a short one. But I thought I'll just give a little bit of a background, just very short, so you know what is this all about and why do we need a new rich text editor, because there are so many already. So basically it started like 2.5 years ago when I did this editable website prototype. And like I was submitting it to the Svelte hackathon, and it received the second prize. And yeah, so this is how I just got interested into this topic. And the way this original prototype worked was like using ProseMirror, an existing rich text editor library, and the whole gluing around is basically just like a Svelte app where you put certain islands that are editable, you can change them, and then you can save the contents directly on the page. But I mean, this worked well. I did several sites with it. For instance, like this one, where basically the layout was like, programmed by myself, and I just allowed the user to change the text or the images in some places. So you just press Command E, you can change some images. I can use a cropper here and so on. So this was like, the old version, and it was working well, but the problem was a little bit, you still need to do a lot of programming, and you cannot like just launch more new sites easily, because basically you just code everything, and you don't have, I'm not able to move this section here to the top and this kind of stuff, because the structure is kind of hard-coded into the page in Svelte, and I wanted to change that. And I was also working together with Johannes Mutter since quite a while now, and we've kind of took that concept of editable websites and we really built client websites. For instance, this is a carpet maker from London, carpet designer, and we did their website with it. And just using basically the same concept, we just evolved the whole thing a little bit and made it more dynamic, so you can actually move things around and change the text here. You have like control over some pictures, so you can change that, and it works well. And still, we were like seeing some limits when it comes to the text editing. So we were using a bit more bare metal primitives. So just like plain text, as you see, we have some markers here. So we really wanted to also support annotations and the whole rich text editor stuff, but we were not able to just plug in an existing rich text editor library. So what we had to do is basically build our own rich text editing library, which is designed specifically for building these kinds of sites. And that is what Svedit is about. And here you see this is like a more basic layout, because this is just a example demoing, like it's the demo page is towards developers, so you should have no extra markup and stuff, so you basically just see how it works. And so basically you can work with this like in a regular text editor, but you also have structure. So like something like that you cannot easily do in classic word processors or prose mirror and so on, and to render or to model the whole thing just like in JSON and with Svelte, how you would typically model like your applications. You always have this kind of mismatch between your framework, Svelte or React or whatever, and the editing library, and you somehow need to bridge that. And here everything is like in one piece, so you can undo, redo, move things around. And what I also introduced here is like kind of these node cursors, I call them. Like each item here is a node. So if you click here, that's like a node selection. And you can put the cursor after nodes and before nodes. So that allows things like, in the list you also have that. So here it's a bit redundant, but you all know these kind of situations where in prose mirror or so on, you cannot kind of select a certain position in the document, and this kind of solves it and gives you a clear way to put things. Like here, for instance, is an empty node array. So that's like when you press enter, you add buttons here. And this is just like one example. So you could use these kind of node arrays anywhere else, and you can model the content. This is a button that has a URL with a special tool that comes up, but you can just model that the way you want. And I will now do something similar to Paolo, just like looking at the releases, so I can show you a bit of like what changed. So basically this, what I just showed you, is there for longer. So the Svedit started like in last like summer, about a year ago, so a bit more than a year it's old. And I'm basically now working on getting this ready for production and fixing all the bugs. And there's a lot, as you can imagine, with content editable. There's a reason why there's just a handful of libraries like Lexical or Prose Mirror that deal with all that madness, as I would call it. And so, for instance, like one thing I had to fix was like input method editors. So if you, for instance, long press A, and then you get like this input method, especially also on mobile. So that is working now. We had kind of like wait, what is this? Like this was the dead key example, for instance, also there. And the tricky part here is that somehow, like ideally Svelte, to give you have like some action, like pressing a key, and then you instruct the model to make the change, and then the change gets rendered incrementally here. And that happens, like that's perfectly fine when I'm typing regular characters. But if I'm using like input method composition, what happens here is actually this is manipulating the DOM, like, without Svelte noticing actually. And this is kind of like a tricky dance. So the way I did this now is like basically, it's also not quite ideal, but because there's some things that need to be fixed on the browser side. So basically the goal would be that I can intercept all the input methods and not let them leak through into the DOM, so I can handle that. So there's work on that, like edit context API and so on. I will be in touch with this W3C team to kind of like collect the bugs and issues that are preventing. But for now, maybe just show a little bit of code, is in the annotated text property, which is the one that is used for any like text editing. We just use the plain text as a key, and basically we just re-render the whole thing, which is a bit sad, when maybe we can optimize to not do it in all the cases, but this is the way, so we can kind of deal with this DOM leaking situations and clean up basically afterwards. So I'm detecting what has changed. I'm actually diffing the content here and finding out which element was added. And then I'm applying the change to the model, and then I'm re-rendering the whole thing. And if I wouldn't do the whole replace, the DOM would get out of sync. So maybe, Paolo, maybe you have ideas how I could control Svelte in these situations to really do fine-grained rendering, or maybe breaking out of Svelte. But this is just like one thing. This was some general improvements. This was the annotations release. So basically before we had annotations kind of like hardwired, so you only had strong emphasis and so on, but now you can actually model annotations yourself. So if you go to the model, so this is how you define a document model. It's just like a piece of JSON, like you have the document, this is the body, has a node array and accepts text, figure, gallery, and so on. And if I'm having annotations here, like the link, strong, emphasis, highlight annotations, you just define them like regular nodes and you can use them. So basically that makes the whole thing extensible. There was also a like request as an open pull request on inline nodes. So, I mean, maybe this, I cannot show it now, but like there is on Prose Mirror, it's a good, the Dino example. Dino's, there it is. You have basically arbitrary content within the text. But this is experimental. This is not yet in the release, but it's in a pull request. So that about annotations. And then the 0.5 release was all about copy and paste. So this is very important. Ideally, you want to just copy some text somewhere and paste it into the editor, and it magically works. See, in this case, it's recognized as plain text. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot better. And it basically also just like you can only approach the perfect solution because you don't know what's coming in the clipboard. But if I have some text, like from here, let's say, it should split it up into paragraphs. And you can, like cut and paste things around. That's also like the main input actually is very keyboard focused. I will add like more visual stuff as well, but I want the core to be really like Word, just like selections and cut and paste, and you can move things around. So that works a lot more reliable than in the previous releases. So much about the updates. Let me see if I missed something, but don't think it's important to go into very much detail. You can look it up yourself. It's still, I mean, the version number suggested it's experimental, but now there's some kind of change happening because in the summer I was focused only on the library. Like all summer I was just working on that. And now I'm in this stage where I'm turning this into an application. So there is like basically editable website version 2 in the making. So this was using Prose Mirror, and the new editable website will use Svedit underneath. And I just wanted to show you the progress on that. And basically, that's maybe most interesting to you as like Svelte developers, like you build websites, apps, and you typically have the problem of content management. So you have some source of information, you typically put the content into a content management system or into some file or some external data source and then render it. And with this approach, you can actually keep it all in one piece. So there is like, with the editable website comes a SQLite database, and you can use anything else, but that's the reference implementation. And it will, like just like it is here, it will load the data, it will display the page. And this is a little glimpse, also pretty much unstyled. I haven't implemented a lot of node types yet, just like main text and then a little bit of a gallery. But you see, this is a complete website. And when I press Command E, I can now also edit the menu, like with the same cursor, basically, then with the text. And the idea here is that we will just have one interface. There is no like admin panel where you change the menu, the stuff that we had in with our previous client projects that were still a bit hard for people to understand. So this time it's really like you surf on the page, like your user surfs on the page, and you make changes to your website. And other than, I mean, this is not a page builder or something. This is really a development environment for building websites, apps, but no need for a content management system anymore. So basically, that's the part that Svelte solves. Like we have a little bit of visuals here, like these node cursors, but you can customize all that. And I'm actually very careful to keep the core very slim, like Svedit. It should really just solve these editing use cases. So it can be also used for other things, but I'm primarily designing it for this editable website use case. So basically, I mean, let me show you what I worked on the last week. This was mostly to image processing. So when you have a website, you want to upload images and you want them automatically resized and so on. So we solved that already, but somehow the user interface wasn't perfect yet. So now you can basically just actually go to the desktop and select some images. Then paste them into the document. That's it. I mean, I pasted them now into the main body, but if I'm pasting it into this image gallery, it will be added here. So Yeah, and you can really just like treat these like cursors, so you can delete image by image. And there's also one design idea. So as you notice here, I don't have even a menu bar yet, because I want to force myself to develop the whole thing completely keyword driven before I add the user interface elements. And for that, the concept is that you have so-called content types. In this case, it's a gallery, but you can switch between different layouts. And when I press Control, Alt, left and right, that also works in the Svedit demo, by the way. You can switch between different layouts. And we had to also kind of come up with a cropper solution. So you want to paste the image, and then it doesn't fulfill the aspect ratio here, or the viewport. So you just basically set a focal point, you move in, and then when you change the layout, it will actually adapt to keeping the focal point. So you have really, or when you maybe display it in a different aspect ratio on mobile, this will work automatically. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool to edit a page like this. It reduces the friction. You don't have to go somewhere else, upload dialogue. It's kind of like all embedded. And yeah, as said, this is not like a ready to use solution. I mean, it is like a starting point. So I'm going to release Editable Website version 2 as a SvelteKit template again. So you can just check that out and use it as it is, with a bunch of predefined content types. But you are actually encouraged to make it your own and build your own kind of framework, maybe for your clients, that has other design properties and other components, other data. And the way this works, for instance, is I can just go to a component. So this is the gallery. Let's look at that. And let's first look at the schema. So we have gallery. There it is. Gallery. So this is of kind block. It has certain properties like a layout, gallery items. This is also just like a thought while we're on it. The schema, I'm actually considering maybe using something like Valibot or SOT. There's like a standard now for these JSON schemas. I'm currently doing it all myself. I'm not completely sure yet in which direction this will go, but maybe it's better to use something that exists and that people are already using. And now that Svelte is also using this same interface for the server side and form validations, maybe I can utilize that too. I think that would be a good addition, but that's not the most highest priority at the moment. But just like for the future, that's what I'm considering. Yeah, so you have gallery, and all nodes need to be flat. So what you can do is like you can have like you don't do nested objects basically. So you just reference other objects. So you have gallery items, and then you have a node array that references gallery items, and then you define the gallery item. And the gallery item has an image, which itself, again, is another node to keep kind of the data points of the image in its own scope, and to keep everything flat, which is important for the data model and to redo how the internals work. It's actually pretty simple. It's just like an object with everything has an ID, and it can be traversed hierarchically. But it allows also things like this, the navigation bar being part of the content, has its own ID, is stored in the database as a shared node, let's say, and the footer is also shared, while the content in between is per page. So that kind of opens up these opportunities. So we have image, title, and description. Actually, these are not needed at the moment. I just like put them there for demonstration because you could have like image gallery which has little labels and descriptions as well. But let's just stick with that, and let's do a little change here. Or maybe wait, let's go for the gallery first. So it's pretty simple. It's just like a bunch of Tailwind classes. the node array property is a so-called, a list of things, in this case, gallery items, and we are styling these from the parent. So the parent is kind of like organizing which aspect ratios and which grid breakpoints it has. So this is the layout one that we saw, which was the more interesting one, like graphically, like this. It's like full size to and so on. And these are the other layouts, and I could just change things. And the gallery item, which are basically then the node array property calls the gallery items. And then, you can do something like make them rounded, for instance, or do a little mouse over effect. So set up the things. Then I hit Command S for saving, and then these effects come into place. So so basically you do the same as before. It's just like you kind of like, you don't have a front and back end split anymore. It's kind of like you develop it live within your schema, and you can just do all kinds of like web development practices. You could also now with Svelte Async, you could actually display some asynchronous information that comes from somewhere else. You need to just be careful to have all the source information of the document within your svedit document model. That's kind of like the king, but you can derive other stuff as applications are needing it. Let me see, is there something else? The navigation, for instance, we can look at. It's the same everywhere. There's just like this node array property, which is, when you look at the implementation, also not super complicated. There's just like a little, this is like for an empty node array, it will display this one cursor trap. So that's basically library code, but you could, the library is very small, so I call it like a white box library. So you're encouraged to just make it your own code and adjust things, because I really don't want to end up with support for a lot of use cases and lots of edge cases, but rather to just have a few thousand lines of code solving this editing miracle for Svelte users. And you shouldn't feel like I cannot touch this, or I need to land a PR before I can use this. Just plug out like several files and do that for you. For instance, the cursor trap, node cursor trap, it's called. This is actually living in application space. So this is just where I'm doing the cursor blinking. Very simple. And here in the property, it basically just iterates through all the nodes. It gets the component from the component registry. I'm using Snake to Pascal, like just to save a bit of typing. Not completely sure about that yet. Then it gets delegated to the component, or displays an unknown node if you haven't registered one. That's it. Footer. Here we have basically nested node arrays. So there's like, you press edit here, there's like columns. So these are like one node array, and then inside the column there is another footer link item list. So that's how it's structured. So if you look at footer, we first traverse to the footer link columns, and then if you go to the footer link column, it will go into the footer links and it will display the label. And this is the annotated text property that is used throughout the system. So basically, instead of having something like here, just some text from like HTML from CMS, you do this instead. That's the main change, basically, for text at least. And maybe let's have a look at images. So there's this figure component, which is like just one image that is displayed just in the original aspect ratio. And what I'm doing here is basically everything that is not text, that is something selectable on the canvas, is a custom property. And in this case, I modeled it that the path to the image is pointing to a node in this document graph. And yeah, you're basically handling this yourself. So there is just an image node. Again, this is not even Svelte core now. This is just like application specific. But here I have my image component, which just does like this object position transforms and so on. Also very small, very simple. And yeah, so this is how images work. And when I go here, select this image, it's actually, so there's a difference. This is the figure that I selected. So that's like a node selection, page 1, body, and then it's like going from the 11th element to the 12th. So this is kind of like the selection. So if I would select more, it's for 2 elements, 10 to 12, just like works like characters, but in this case it's blocks. And if you select an image, this is a so-called property selection, points to the image, and then I can react to that. For instance, when I click backspace, it will delete the image. You see? Yeah, it will delete the image. Then I need to come up with a new one from external, paste it, and yeah, this overlay. So the idea is, or the problem with lots of rich text editors is that you have the whole editing UI somehow mixed up with the canvas. So you have a canvas where you design stuff, but then you have all these editing controls, and they are usually on the same plane. And that was a design goal of Svedit and the website, that you kind of are detaching that. So we're using CSS anchor positioning. I know that's new, but now in all browsers it's supported already. But that just means like everyone that is editing the page needs to have these browsers. But that helps us to kind of put things as an overlay. So when I select that image, what it does actually is in the overlays component, which is also, wait, is this the right one? This one. Yeah, add to the website, overlays, exactly. So I'm just checking if the selection is a property selection, and if yes, and the image source property is filled out, then I'm rendering the image controls. So if I would comment that out and I would click on an image, it would not show the controls. So now it's like kind of without image manipulation. And that's just like sitting on top. Okay, I mean, I guess I could go on forever, but I'm curious. Maybe Paolo, you have some questions, or maybe we can.
First thing first, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So first thing first, like I think there's some question from like Mike that is asking, is this what you see is what you get for external renderers, like a markdown at HTML?
So basically, Markdown is not part of the equation here. So if you wanted to do something like a good example, for instance, is like a formula, like a mathematical formula, you cannot do this in a rich text editor. Mm-hmm. The classical, these marks you can do yourself. So that's why it's a WYSIWYG experience. It's kind of like the design goal here is that you write in code the layout and so on, and then you deploy the website and you give the site owner like an admin password, and then they can do things like in Microsoft Word style. So they don't need to know about Markdown, how this works, and like markup languages. So it's actually, I was really trying to get rid of the Markdown kind of flow, because that was something that the clients were struggling with, or that you probably also know when you deploy a website, then something in the CMS you need to enter in a certain way for it to appear in a certain way on the website. And this is the whole goal of the project, to eliminate that and to basically split the responsibility. Like you as the website developer, you're responsible for all the layout things and how things are constrained. And then the user is only responsible for the content. So you don't have a lot of like styling possibilities. You cannot change, like you cannot have a slider here to change the image width or something. It's kind of like coded into the layout. That's the developer's responsibility. Yeah. I hope that kind of covers the question, but feel free to ask again if
And this was actually like a question that I also had. Like, so like from what I understand, like your library is basically what your library is doing is basically managing this big blob of like information about the website that you can store in your whatever, and then allowing you to basically do edit on this like data structure, correct?
Exactly.
And all the rest is the responsibility of the user, like that is using your library. That's correct.
Exactly. That's correct. Yeah.
They need to figure out how to like change, like when you click on an image, they need to figure out they need to build the UI to modify the image. They need to figure out like how to get an image from like the browser like to the browser, and then they just insert that into your like structure and you do the rest.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sort of also registration, like in your data structure, you can register that an image is this component, or that's also you need to do it manually.
That's like just a registry. So there is, call it node components here. Okay. So these are the components that are registered for that page, and you see it has everything like the page, the nav item, footer, but it's completely custom. And I mean, this is like, I'm aware this is like something to start from scratch can be hard, but that's why I'm keen of having this template. So basically one reference implementation, editable website, which is like, black on white, very simple, but that's the starting point for you to do your own thing. But you can diverge a lot, and I suppose you will if you seriously do client projects. And sometimes you have your own style and you have your own kind of visual aesthetics, and then you program that once, and then you can deploy it multiple times.
Yeah. And by the way, I think it's like the attention to detail is very like congrats for the attention to detail.
Thank you.
At least maybe you are very used to use it, but at least seeing you use it, like it does feels like just like even better, to be fair, than like a Word document, like because when you are images and Word, like things goes south very very quickly. But
that's true.
I think it's very nice that like you can just edit stuff like this. One question that I always had, like during the like whenever I saw you like do some presentation about this, was so I assume that it's also the developer responsibility to lock the editing phase down, right? Because like you are just pressing Command E and like it will unlock edit mode. But obviously, if I'm deploying this website, I only want specific person to do that. But I assume that is also part of like it's also your responsibility, correct?
It's correct. Yeah. I mean, again, I would just come up with one solution how to do it, but you can do it differently. So for instance, we had here, like we had done a little bit more of user management. So you can even switch roles and this kind of stuff. So you can log in with an email. For editable website, I will keep it very simple, just like a password login to have the session. But you can just build this out as you wish. So that's just like Svelte land. Basically, if you do Svelte applications, you're dealing with these things. You can do it just as usual.
Yeah, I think it's a very nice mix of, because like for example, there are some like CMS that like allow you to have some sort of experience where you can edit stuff in the CMS. You render it as a component. But I think like this is the right balance between the two. Like you still get the experience, like it's a very nice experience of just editing your website literally by visiting. So that's very nice
Yeah.
in terms of what you can do, and then you can pair that with like storing the information inside your database or whatever. That's pretty cool.
Exactly. And maybe what I wanted to add, just because you're asking here, like this patchwork application, for instance, is a good example because there is like also Command E. I mean, it's not logged in, but I can still do it just for demos. You can, by the way, all the editable websites we deployed, you can press Command E and you can mess around, but you cannot save, of course, because you don't have the session. But here is like a booking system built in, and that's like more classic web development here. Yeah, when you book a meeting room, okay, it's Friday, that's why nothing is available. Yeah, I mean, I would need to log in now, exactly. But kind of like what is typical problem is you have your website, which is like just your content, and then you have your app.companyname.com, which are separate, and then you have to somehow adjust the visual style and so on. And here we could kind of like unify this, so we have the website with information, like presentational information, but you also have the app, and it integrates Stripe and everything. So that's kind of like cool to combine these two. And I guess there's a lot of like applications out there where always a little bit of content management part is involved, and for this it's maybe a perfect fit.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you,
and thank you for joining us. And guys, thank you for sticking with us. And I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed Mikael presentation. Sorry. And I'll see you guys next Friday. Bye.